Hello everyone, before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's return to our main character. The chandelier glowed like frozen fire above the dining hall of the Marlowe, the most exclusive restaurant in Manhattan. Crystal glasses clinked softly. Laughter from the wealthy echoed like it belonged to another world. And at the center of it all, Arthur Hale. The arrogant millionaire sat at the head of the long oak table, his custom-tailored suit sharper than the knives laid neatly on linen. His reputation was legend, ruthless in the boardroom, colder still at the dinner table. But tonight, one mistake would put that reputation to the test. Mia Torres rushed between tables, a tray balanced in her trembling hands. Her black uniform was too big, her shoes squeaked with every step. She prayed no one noticed. Table 12. Bordeaux, vintage 92. Handle it carefully, her manager hissed. Mia nodded, though her palms were already slick with sweat. One wrong move and the bottle in her tray was worth more than her rent for 6 months. She stepped closer to Arthur's table. His icy eyes caught hers for half a second. And that was enough. The tray tilted. Scarlet wine spilled down his immaculate white jacket. Silence fell like a blade. Arthur stood slowly. Every guest froze. His voice was calm but cut through the room like steel. Do you have any idea what you've just done? Mia's heart slammed in her chest. She grabbed a napkin, dabbing frantically. I'm so sorry, sir, it was an accident, of course it was. His lips curved into a cold smile. A poor waitress who can't even hold a bottle. Should I call security, or do you prefer to walk out on your own? Gasps rippled around the table. Her manager whispered, Mia, don't say a word. But Mia straightened her shoulders. Her voice shook, but her eyes didn't. Well, at least I gave your suit some color. It was looking lifeless. The entire table inhaled sharply. Arthur blinked once. Then twice. For the first time all night, he had no words. Minutes later, she was ordered to finish her shift in silence. But as she cleared the plates, Mia noticed something strange. Arthur's gaze kept following her. Cold, calculating yet curious. Because in a room where everyone bowed their heads, she was the only one who dared to speak back. At the end of service, Mia slipped outside to the alley behind the restaurant. The city roared with taxis and neon lights, but all she felt was the ache in her hands and the sting in her pride. She pulled out a crumpled sketchbook from her apron pocket. Quick pencil strokes revealed dresses she had designed in her breaks, dreams that didn't fit her paycheck. She whispered to herself. One day, behind her, a door clicked open. Arthur Hale stepped out, jacket changed, eyes sharper than ever. He looked at the sketchbook in her hands. Then at her. Interesting, he said, voice low. You think you belong in my world? Mia froze, clutching the pages to her chest. And just like that, the spark neither of them expected had begun. The alley was cold, the hum of traffic mixing with the faint smell of wine still clinging to Mia's hands. She held the sketchbook tighter, wishing the night would just swallow her whole. Arthur's shadow loomed closer. His voice was low, sharp, but not as cruel as before. You think you belong in my world? Mia met his gaze, defiant despite her pounding heart. I don't need to belong in your world. I have one of my own. Arthur's eyes flicked to the sketches again, the lines of gowns drawn on worn paper. Something flickered in his expression, quickly buried under ice. You're bold for a waitress, he muttered. Bold or stupid? Mia forced a smile. Maybe both. But at least I'm not boring. For a second, the corner of his mouth almost curved upward. Almost. Then his phone buzzed. A call. His tone shifted instantly. Yes, send the contracts to my office. No delays. His cold mask returned as he slipped the phone back into his pocket. Arthur gave Mia one last look. Clean up better next time. He turned, walking away as if she was nothing but a footnote. But he didn't see the fire that lit in her eyes as he disappeared into the night. The next morning, Mia dragged herself to her second job at a local diner. The apron was faded, the pay was small, but at least the customers weren't billionaires with egos bigger than the city's skyline. Her best friend Rosa leaned on the counter, smirking. You look like you wrestled with a wine bottle and lost. Mia groaned. Don't remind me. I practically poured Bordeaux over New York's most arrogant man. And? Rosa raised an eyebrow. And he stared at me like I was different. I don't know. It was weird. Rosa grinned. Careful, girl. Sounds like sparks. Mia shook her head firmly. The only sparks I need are from a sewing machine, thank you very much. Meanwhile, in a glass tower overlooking the city, Arthur Hale sat in his office. The morning sun reflected off the skyline, but his mind wasn't on numbers or contracts. It was on a waitress who dared to talk back. He replayed her words in his head, her sketches, her defiance. Every assistant, every employee around him usually crumbled under his gaze. She hadn't. He hated how it intrigued him. That evening, fate twisted the threads tighter. Arthur had a high-profile dinner meeting potential investors, all sharp suits and sharper tongues. But when the server scheduled for the night called in sick, the restaurant scrambled for help. And in walked Mia, carrying a tray she had promised herself never to hold again. Their eyes met across the room. Arthur froze mid-sentence. The investors noticed, their curiosity piqued. Mia's hand shook slightly as she poured water into crystal glasses, but her voice was steady. Good evening, gentlemen. One of the investors chuckled. Arthur, is this your new assistant? Arthur's jaw tightened. She's just a waitress. Mia bit her lip, but stayed silent. Until one investor asked about a detail in the upcoming deal, something technical, something subtle. Arthur's lawyers had prepped him, but his answer stumbled. Before she could stop herself, Mia spoke. Actually, sir, the figures align differently if you consider last quarter's projection curve. The room went quiet. Arthur's head snapped toward her. What did you just say? Mia flushed crimson. Two overheard while serving. Sorry. I shouldn't have, but the investor leaned forward, intrigued. No, go on. Mia explained softly, her words careful yet precise. She had read about the numbers in a financial magazine she borrowed from the library. When she finished, silence hung heavy. Then the investor smiled. Remarkable. She's right. Arthur stared at Mia, a storm of disbelief and something else brewing behind his eyes. The girl who spilled wine on his suit had just saved his reputation in front of men who could make or break his empire. After the meeting ended, Arthur cornered her near the back hallway. His tone was sharp, but his eyes burned with questions. Who are you, Mia Torres? A waitress doesn't talk like that. Mia swallowed hard. Just someone who reads. Someone who dreams. Arthur stepped closer, his voice low. Dream carefully. In my world, sparks can burn you alive. Mia's pulse raced, but she didn't flinch. Then let it burn, she whispered. Arthur's breath caught for half a second before his mask returned, colder than ever. Be at the Marlowe tomorrow. 6 sharp. Mia blinked. Why? Because, Arthur said, his words deliberate, I don't like debts. And right now I owe you. Her heart skipped. The arrogant millionaire had just opened a door she never expected. The next evening, the Marlowe glittered once again. Golden chandeliers. Silver cutlery. The kind of place where secrets were whispered behind wine glasses and fortunes were sealed with handshakes. Mia stood outside the staff entrance, clutching her worn sketchbook like a shield. She hadn't planned to come. But Arthur's command from the night before replayed in her head, "Be there. 6 sharp." Her instincts screamed to run. But something stronger kept her feet planted. A spark. A chance. She pushed the door open. Arthur was already there. Standing tall, perfect suit pressed, glass of water in his hand like it was a scepter. His eyes landed on her instantly. "You're late," he said, though it was only 601. Mia rolled her eyes. 1 minute isn't late. In my world, he replied coldly, 1 minute is a lifetime. Their gazes clashed. For a brief second, it felt less like a lecture and more like a duel. Arthur gestured to a chair near the corner table. "Sit." Mia crossed her arms. "You dragged me here, but I'm not your employee." "You're right," he said. His lips curved faintly. "If you were, you'd already be fired." She almost laughed to spite herself. Almost. He slid a file across the table. Sleek. Heavy. "Look at this." Mia hesitated, then flipped it open. Charts. Numbers. Contracts. Her heart sank. She barely made sense of it. Arthur leaned closer, his voice low. "Tell me what you see." She frowned. "I'm not an accountant." "I don't care," he said sharply. "Tell me what you see." Mia studied the lines again. Her eyes lingered on a misaligned figure, a small error buried deep. She tapped the page slowly. "This doesn't match the previous quarter. It looks intentional. Like someone wanted you to miss it." Arthur froze. His jaw tightened. No one else had noticed. Not his analysts. Not his lawyers. "But this waitress, you can't possibly," he stopped. His eyes narrowed. "How?" Mia shrugged. "Numbers are like dresses. If one stitch is wrong, the whole piece falls apart." Arthur stared at her, silent for several seconds. The room felt heavier with every heartbeat. Finally, he spoke. "You intrigue me, Miss Torres. And I don't like being intrigued." The silence stretched. Mia gripped her sketchbook tighter. "Why me?" she asked suddenly. "You could buy experts with a snap of your fingers. Why keep dragging a waitress into your world?" Arthur leaned back, studying her like a puzzle. "Because experts lie. Experts want money, power, titles. You only wanted to wipe wine off my suit." His words hung in the air, unexpected even to himself. Mia blinked, caught off guard. "Don't mistake honesty for stupidity. I didn't ask to be part of your games." Arthur smirked faintly. "Yet here you are." Their conversation was cut short when his phone buzzed again. He answered quickly, his voice clipped. "What do you mean the deal is collapsing?" "I'll be there." He ended the call, sliding the phone back into his pocket. For the first time, his controlled mask cracked. A flash of frustration crossed his face. Mia tilted her head. "Problem?" Arthur's jaw clenched. "An investor. He's pulling out. It could ruin weeks of negotiation." "Then go fix it," Mia said simply. Arthur's gaze locked on hers, burning with something unspoken. "Maybe I already found the fix." Hours later, they stood side by side in a boardroom filled with suits and tension. Mia hadn't planned to follow him. But Arthur had looked at her with a command hidden in his eyes, and somehow her legs had carried her here. The investor spoke, frustration clear. "These numbers don't add up. I won't risk millions on sloppy math." Arthur opened his mouth but Mia stepped forward, heart pounding. "Actually, sir, the error is here." She pointed at the same misaligned figure she'd spotted earlier. It's not sloppy math. It's a hidden safeguard. The contract still protects you if you read it correctly. All eyes turned to her. The silence was suffocating. The investor squinted at the page, then at her. Finally, he leaned back, lips curling slowly. Interesting. Very interesting. Arthur didn't move. Didn't breathe. Because once again, the poor waitress had done what no one else could. She had silenced the room. As the meeting ended successfully, Arthur lingered by the doorway. His voice was quieter now, almost thoughtful. You keep surprising me, Mia. She grabbed her sketchbook tighter, exhaustion in her eyes but fire in her tone. Then stop underestimating me. Arthur's lips pressed into a line. For once, he had no clever retort. Instead, he simply watched her walk away. And though he would never admit it, something in him knew this spark was no longer one he could control. By the next morning, whispers were already circling the Marlowe and Hale enterprises alike about a poor waitress who had stunned a room full of investors. Some said she was a genius. Others said she was trouble. And not everyone liked it. Mia walked through the service hallway of the restaurant, her apron tied tight, hair pulled back. She kept her head down, but the eyes of her coworkers followed her like shadows. One waitress sneered, whispering loud enough for Mia to hear. Careful, she might replace us with her big brain. Another laughed. Or maybe she's just cozying up to the boss. Heat rushed to Mia's cheeks, but she didn't respond. She kept moving, tray in hand. Inside, though, her chest burned. Not with shame. With something fiercer. She had fought too hard, sacrificed too much, to let gossip undo her. Meanwhile, high above in his glass tower, Arthur Hale sat at his desk, twirling a pen between his fingers. His assistant rattled off numbers, but his thoughts were elsewhere. On her. The waitress with the fire in her eyes. The one who kept dismantling his certainty piece by piece. But he wasn't the only one thinking about her. Across the table, his business partner Daniel Marks leaned back in his chair, smirking. I heard your new consultant made quite the impression. Arthur's jaw tightened. She's not my consultant. Call her whatever you like, Daniel said smoothly. But you should be careful. People are starting to talk. Arthur's eyes sharpened. Let them. But Daniel's smirk didn't fade. That evening, the Marlowe hosted a charity banquet, an event filled with gowns, tuxedos, and flashing cameras. Arthur, as one of the sponsors, was expected to attend. Mia had no intention of being there. But fate had other plans. Her manager shoved a tray of champagne flutes into her hands. We're short-staffed. Get out there. Mia froze. Out there? Into the sea of wealth and judgment? But before she could argue, she was already pushed toward the golden ballroom. The lights blinded her as she stepped inside. Crystal chandeliers. Velvet drapes. Diamonds on every wrist. And then Arthur. Standing across the room in his black tuxedo, he turned his head. Their eyes met instantly. Mia's heart skipped. She tried to look away, but he was already moving toward her. Mia Torres, he said softly when he reached her. I didn't expect to see you here. She lifted the tray higher, her voice tight. Neither did I. Arthur studied her, as though the tray, the uniform, the whispers in the room were invisible. Don't let them rattle you. Before she could respond, a sharp voice cut through the air. Well, well. So the rumors are true. A tall woman in a silk gown appeared at Arthur's side, her smile sharp as glass. The great Arthur Hale and his little waitress. Mia stiffened. Excuse me? The woman tilted her head, eyes glinting. How bold. First you spill wine on him, then you save his empire. What's next, darling? His heart? Gasps rippled around nearby guests. Phones lifted discreetly, recording every second. Arthur's expression hardened. Meredith, enough. But Meredith only smirked wider. Oh, I'm not the only one curious. Everyone wants to know who exactly is she to you? The room felt smaller, the lights hotter. Dozens of eyes turned toward them. Mia's hands trembled on the tray. She wanted to disappear. But then, Arthur did something no one expected. He stepped closer. Just enough to silence the whispers. His voice was calm but carried across the hall. She's someone who deserves respect. Mia's breath caught. But before the warmth could settle, Meredith leaned in with one final dagger. Respect? Or something more? The crowd held its breath. Arthur said nothing. His silence was louder than words. Mia's heart pounded. Her mind screamed to run. But her feet stayed rooted, the champagne tray shaking in her hands, because in that moment, she realized this wasn't just whispers anymore. This was war. By the next morning, headlines splashed across glossy magazines and gossip blogs. Millionaire Arthur Hale spotted with mystery waitress at charity banquet. Romance or scandal? The spark no one saw coming. Every article showed the same photo: Arthur standing close to Mia, her tray trembling, her eyes caught in his. Mia's stomach twisted as she scrolled through the images on her cracked phone. She hadn't asked for this. She hadn't wanted any of it. Now the whole city thought she was something she wasn't. At the Marlowe, her co-workers didn't even try to hide their smirks. Careful, princess, one whispered as Mia passed. Don't trip on your crown. Another added, better enjoy it before he gets bored. Mia bit her tongue until it bled. If she fought back, it would only feed the fire. So she walked faster, eyes fixed on the floor. But deep down, it hurt. More than she would ever admit. Meanwhile, Arthur's office was a storm of flashing headlines and unanswered calls. His assistant, pale and nervous, placed a tablet on his desk. Sir, the board is demanding a statement. They think this waitress could damage your image. Arthur's jaw clenched. Since when does honesty damage an image? Daniel Marks, his partner, stepped in with a dry laugh. Since forever, Arthur. You know the rules. Men like us don't get tangled with women like her. The public won't forgive it. Investors won't either. Arthur's fist tightened around his pen. She's not the problem. You are. But even as he said it, doubt whispered at the back of his mind. That evening, Mia tried to slip out the back door after her shift. But Arthur was waiting. He stood in the alley, his silhouette sharp against the glow of city lights. His voice was calm, but edged with frustration. You saw the headlines. Mia crossed her arms, exhaustion etched into her face. I didn't ask for them. You think I don't know that? He stepped closer. But the world doesn't care what you asked for. They see a story, and they'll twist it until it breaks you. Her chest tightened. Then maybe you should let them. Let them think whatever they want. Just leave me out of it. Arthur's eyes darkened. You want me to ignore you? Pretend you don't exist? Yes, she whispered, if that's what it takes. The silence between them was heavier than any words. Finally, Arthur exhaled, sharp and cold. Fine. Consider it done. And he walked away. Days turned into a blur. Mia threw herself into work, scrubbing dishes, serving tables, sketching in secret corners when no one looked. She told herself it was better this way. Safer. But every time her pencil touched paper, her mind betrayed her, drawing not gowns, not dreams, but eyes. Cold, gray, unshakable. Arthur Hale's eyes. At the same time, Arthur buried himself in contracts and meetings. His empire grew, his profits soared. But no matter how many zeros appeared on his spreadsheets, he couldn't silence the memory of her voice. The way she had said, "Stop underestimating me." It echoed in his mind like a song he couldn't escape. He told himself it didn't matter. She was just a waitress. Just a spark. Sparks burned out. But late at night, standing alone in his penthouse with the city lights sprawling beneath him, he knew it was a lie. 1 week later, fate intervened again. Arthur attended another high-profile dinner, investors buzzing, glasses clinking. Everything was perfect until one investor asked about the waitress rumor. "Arthur," the man said with a grin. "Tell us. Is it true? Did you really bring a girl from the kitchen into your boardroom?" The table erupted with laughter. Arthur's chest tightened. He forced a smile, hiding the storm inside. But deep down, shame twisted. Not at Myatt himself. For letting her go. That same night, Mia sat alone in her tiny apartment, bills scattered across the table, her little brother asleep in the next room. She traced the edges of her sketchbook, fighting back tears. She whispered into the quiet, "You were right, Rosa. Sparks don't last." But even as she said it, her hand kept moving, drawing lines in the dark. Lines that looked like hope. Lines that looked like Arthur. And though neither of them knew it, the distance between them was only the beginning of a storm that would change everything. Rain pelted against the diner's windows, blurring the neon signs outside. Mia wiped down the counter, her mind heavy with bills waiting at home and whispers she couldn't escape. The doorbell chimed. She didn't look up. Customers came and went. But then she heard a voice she knew too well. "Coffee. Black." Her heart froze. Slowly, she looked up. Arthur Hale. Drenched from the rain, suit slightly undone, eyes colder than the storm outside. Mia's throat tightened. "We don't serve boardroom contracts here. Just coffee." Arthur's jaw ticked. But then his lips curved, faintly, almost against his will. "Maybe I need coffee more than contracts." She poured without another word, sliding the cup across. Their fingers brushed, and for a second, silence hung heavy between them. Arthur leaned in, lowering his voice. "I heard about your designs." Mia blinked. "What?" He tapped the sketchbook peeking from under her apron. "One of your coworkers showed me. You hide them like secrets." "Why?" Her chest tightened. "Because they are secrets. My dreams aren't for sale." Arthur's gaze softened for the briefest moment. "Maybe they should be shared." Before Mia could answer, the diner door swung open. Rosa rushed in, her umbrella dripping. "Mia! You didn't check your phone?" Mia frowned. "What happened?" Rosa's eyes darted between her and Arthur. "The fashion showcase. The one downtown. They're calling for last-minute entries. Open category. Anyone can apply if they submit sketches tonight." Mia's breath caught. "Tonight?" Arthur's gaze never left her. "Do it." Her hands trembled. "I can't. I don't have fabric, or money, or—" Arthur cut her off. "You have talent. The rest I'll handle." That night was chaos. In a whirlwind, Arthur pulled strings, called contacts, and within hours Mia stood backstage at the city's showcasea room buzzing with designers, models, and flashing lights. She felt like an imposter, clutching her sketches with shaking hands. "I don't belong here," she whispered. Arthur's voice was steady, right behind her. "Neither did I, once. Then I decided to stop asking permission." Mia turned, eyes wide. "Why are you helping me?" His answer was quiet, almost lost in the noise. "Because you helped me when no one else could." Before she could respond, her name was called. On stage, the spotlight was blinding. Judges leaned forward, pens ready. Mia swallowed hard and laid her sketches on the table. Dresses she had drawn in the shadows of her tiny apartment, between shifts, by candlelight. Her voice trembled at first. These are inspired by the streets I grew up on. By the colors people wear when they have nothing but still want to shine. The room was silent. Judges flipped through each page. Murmurs spread surprise, curiosity. One judge looked up, eyes bright. These are raw. Unpolished. But real. There's vision here. Another nodded. She sees fashion the way it should be seen alive. From the corner of the room, Arthur watched. For the first time in years, he felt something stir deep inside him. Not admiration for skill. Not even curiosity. Something warmer. Something he had fought against every day since she spilled wine on his suit. When Mia stepped off stage, her knees almost gave out. She hadn't won. She hadn't lost. But she had been heard. Arthur caught her arm before she could stumble. Breathe. Mia's eyes brimmed with tears. I thought they'd laugh. They didn't, Arthur said firmly. They saw you. Finally. She shook her head, overwhelmed. This changes nothing. I'm still just, Arthur interrupted, his voice fierce. Don't say it. You're not just anything. Their eyes locked. The world blurred around them. And in that instant, the arrogant millionaire realized the poor waitress had already changed everything. The night of the showcase lingered in Mia's mind long after the lights dimmed. She hadn't won. She hadn't lost. But she had been seen. And for someone who spent years invisible, that meant everything. What she didn't know was that Arthur hadn't stopped thinking about it either. 2 days later, Mia was back at the diner. Grease popping on the stove, coffee mugs clattering, customers asking for refills. It was ordinary. Safe. Until a black car pulled up outside. Heads turned as Arthur Hale himself stepped through the door, his presence like a cold wind in the crowded diner. Rosa dropped her pen. Mia, oh my God, he's here for you. Mia froze, spatula in hand. No. He can't be. Mia, Arthur's voice cut through the chatter. Calm. Certain. We need to talk. The entire diner went silent. They ended up sitting in a booth by the window, neon lights casting blue shadows across his face. Arthur leaned forward. The judges called me. They want to see more of your work. A private review. Tomorrow. Mia blinked, her heart skipping. What? That can't be real. It is, he said flatly. I arranged it. Her chest tightened. Why? Why keep doing this for me? Arthur's gaze was steady, unreadable. Because you're worth it. The words hung between them, heavy, impossible. Mia's breath caught. Arthur, but before she could say more, a voice from across the diner shouted, Hey! Isn't that the millionaire from the tabloids? What's he doing with her? Laughter followed. Whispers rose like smoke. Mia's face burned. She pushed back from the booth. This is exactly why I didn't want your help. Arthur stood quickly. Mia, but she was already gone, apron tossed aside, running into the rain. Later that night, Mia sat on the fire escape of her small apartment, rain dripping from her hair. She clutched her sketchbook to her chest, whispering into the dark. Why does he have to make everything so complicated? Inside, her little brother stirred in his sleep, mumbling her name. She wiped her eyes quickly, forcing a smile. It's okay, kiddo. I've got us. I always do. Across town, Arthur stood in his penthouse, city lights blazing through glass walls. He poured himself a drink but didn't touch it. Her words echoed in his mind. This is exactly why I didn't want your help. For the first time, he wondered if his power, his name, wasn't saving her, but hurting her. And that thought unsettled him more than any failed deal ever had. The next morning, Mia tried to focus on work. But when she returned home, she found an envelope tucked under her door. Inside, an invitation. Private Fashion Review, Manhattan Art Hall, 7 p.m. Her breath caught. Arthur had kept his word. She stared at the paper, torn between fear and hope. Between the safety of shadows and the danger of light. Rosa's voice echoed in her head, "Careful, girl. Sounds like sparks." That evening, Mia stood outside the art hall. Her dress was simple, borrowed, but her sketches were hers. Pure. Honest. Arthur waited at the entrance, tuxedo sharp, expression unreadable. When he saw her, his gaze softened just slightly. "You came," he said quietly. Mia's hands trembled around her portfolio. "I almost didn't." "But you did," Arthur replied. His voice lowered, almost warm. "That's what matters." Inside, the judges awaited. Lights, silence, anticipation. Mia laid out her designs again. But this time, she wasn't trembling. She spoke clearly, her voice carrying. "These are stories," she said. "Of people who are overlooked. Of strength hidden in places no one bothers to see." Arthur watched from the corner, his chest tightening. She wasn't just talking about dresses. She was talking about herself, and maybe, about him too. When the review ended, applause broke out. One judge even stood, clapping. This is talent." Mia blinked in disbelief, eyes shining. Arthur's lips curved, almost a smile. For the first time, pride not arrogance flashed in his gaze. He stepped closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "You belong here, Mia. Don't ever forget it." Her heart pounded, her breath unsteady. She looked up into his eyes and for a moment, the world disappeared. But just as the silence between them turned into something more, the doors burst open. Cameras. Reporters. Flashbulbs blinding. "Arthur! Who's the girl? Is this your new girlfriend? Waitress turned fashion star?" The moment shattered. Mia's face drained of color. And Arthur realized too late his world had just collided with hers in the harshest way possible. The flashes were merciless. Reporters surged into the art hall like a storm, cameras clicking, voices overlapping in chaos. "Arthur! Look here! Who's the waitress, Arthur? Are you in love with her?" Mia's chest tightened. The sketches she held nearly slipped from her trembling hands. Arthur's arm moved instinctively, shielding her from the cameras. "Back off," he barked, his voice sharp as steel. But the questions didn't stop. If anything, they grew louder. Within hours, the story exploded online. Waitress turned muse? Arthur Hale's secret companion revealed. From aprons to Armani, the Cinderella of Wall Street? Social media buzzed with photos of Mia's simple dress, her wide eyes, Arthur at her side. And while some comments praised her courage, most dripped with venom. "She's just using him. Gold digger. She doesn't belong in his world." Mia scrolled in silence, her face pale in the glow of her phone. Rosa tried to snatch it away. "Stop reading that garbage." But Mia whispered, voice breaking, "What if they're right?" Across town, Arthur faced his board of directors. The room was tense, his name splashed across every news outlet in the city. One director slammed his fist on the table. "This is reckless, Arthur. Our company's image is at stake. Investors are nervous. Drop her." Arthur's eyes narrowed. "She's not a liability. She's a waitress," another sneered. "Do you really think a woman like that can stand beside you without dragging us down?" Arthur's jaw tightened. For once, he had no sharp comeback. The weight of their judgment pressed down heavier than any contract. That night, Mia walked home alone, the city's neon lights blurry through unshed tears. Her phone buzzed non-stop calls from reporters, messages from strangers she'd never met. She turned it off. But when she reached her building, a group of neighbors were waiting, whispering, pointing. One of them snickered. "Guess we've got a celebrity now. Don't forget us when you're rich." Mia's stomach twisted. She rushed upstairs, locking the door behind her. Her little brother peeked from the bedroom, rubbing his eyes. "Mia? Why are people saying your name on TV?" She forced a shaky smile. "Don't worry about it, kiddo. Go back to sleep." But when the door closed, her smile crumbled. Meanwhile, Arthur stood alone in his penthouse, staring at the skyline. His reflection in the glass looked hollow, like a man torn between worlds. He poured a drink, but it stayed untouched. Because every headline screamed the same thing: she doesn't belong. And for the first time, Arthur wondered if protecting her meant letting her go. The next morning, Mia arrived at the Marlowe for her shift. The moment she stepped inside, conversations died. Co-workers stared. Some with pity. Others with cruelty. Her manager pulled her aside. "Mia, I'm sorry. This publicity, it's bad for the restaurant. We can't keep you." Mia's throat closed. "You're firing me? For what? Working too hard? For surviving?" He avoided her eyes. "For being seen." She left with her apron folded in her arms, her world unraveling piece by piece. By afternoon, the tabloids struck again. Arthur Hale's waitress lover fired. Was she just a scandal? The headline hit harder than any slap. Mia sat on her apartment floor, sketches scattered around her. Her dreams, once so fragile, now felt crushed under the weight of a world that didn't want her. Tears burned her eyes. "Maybe I was never meant for this." She almost ripped the sketches in half. Almost. But then her phone buzzed. A message. From Arthur. "Meet me. Midnight. The rooftop of Hale Tower." Mia's heart raced. Her hands shook as she held the phone. She didn't know if she had the strength. She didn't know if she could face him. But she knew one thing: whatever happened next, her life would never be the same. The night was sharp and cold. Wind whipped across the rooftop of Hale Tower, carrying with it the hum of the city below. Mia stood near the edge, clutching her jacket tighter, her hair tangled in the breeze. The city stretched endlessly, neon lights, rushing cars, lives moving too fast. She had almost turned back twice. But here she was. Footsteps behind her. Steady. Controlled. Arthur Hale emerged from the shadows, his black coat brushing against the wind. For once, the arrogance in his stride seemed tempered by something heavier. "You came," he said softly. Mia turned, her voice flat. "You asked." Silence stretched between them, broken only by the howl of the wind. Arthur stepped closer, eyes fixed on hers. "I read the headlines. I saw what they did to you." Mia's chest tightened. And I'm sorry," he said. The words were simple, but from his lips they sounded foreign, almost impossible. Mia laughed bitterly. "Sorry doesn't give me my job back. Sorry doesn't erase what they're saying about me." Arthur's jaw tightened. "I tried to protect you." Her eyes burned. "By dragging me into your world? By standing there while they tore me apart?" He flinched just slightly, but enough. Mia turned back to the skyline, her voice trembling. "I was fine being invisible, Arthur. At least invisibility doesn't destroy you." Arthur took a deep breath, his mask cracking. "You're wrong. You were never invisible. Not to me." Her heart skipped. But she forced herself to stay steady. "Don't say that. Don't make this harder." He stepped closer, his voice lower, urgent. You think I don't care? That I don't feel anything? Mia, you've been in my head since the moment you spilled wine on me. Her breath caught. She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to. But the scars of humiliation were still raw. She shook her head. You don't know what it's like to be me. To be laughed at, stepped on, thrown away just for existing. Arthur's voice broke in a way she had never heard. And you don't know what it's like to be me. To have everything: power, money, control, and still feel empty. The confession hung in the air, vulnerable and sharp. Mia turned slowly. For the first time, his eyes weren't cold steel. They were human. Tired. Searching. Her chest ached. Arthur took another step, now standing inches away. His voice was barely a whisper. I don't want this distance anymore. I don't want to keep pretending. Mia's lips parted, her heart racing. Arthur, but before the words could form, the rooftop door burst open. Daniel Marks stormed out, coat flapping in the wind, anger blazing in his eyes. Well, isn't this touching, he sneered. The great Arthur Hale risking everything for a waitress. Arthur's expression hardened instantly, his warmth vanishing under a mask of steel. Daniel. Leave. Daniel laughed, shaking his head. You're throwing your empire away for her. Don't you see? She's the scandal, Arthur. She's the weakness they'll use to destroy you. Mia's hands trembled, her throat closing. Arthur's fists clenched. Careful, Daniel. But Daniel didn't stop. His voice cut like a blade. She doesn't love you. She loves what you give her. And the moment you lose it all, she'll vanish like she never existed. The words stabbed deeper than Mia wanted to admit. Her eyes burned with tears, torn between anger and fear. Arthur stepped forward, his voice sharp. Enough. But Daniel's smirk only widened. Then prove it. Tell me, Arthur, what is she really worth to you? The rooftop fell silent. Wind roared. The city pulsed below. Arthur's gaze locked on Mia. Her breath caught in her throat, waiting for his answer. And in that moment, everything hung on the words he would or wouldn't say. The rooftop air grew heavier, every gust of wind slicing through the silence. Daniel's smirk lingered like poison. Go on, Arthur. Tell her. Tell us what she's worth to you. Arthur's jaw tightened, his gray eyes flickering between Daniel and Mia. For the first time, the man known for never hesitating hesitated. Mia's chest rose and fell, her pulse racing. She needed to hear something real. But Arthur said nothing. The silence was louder than any answer. Daniel chuckled, his voice dripping with triumph. Exactly what I thought. She's nothing. Just a distraction. Mia's throat tightened. She stepped back, her voice trembling but sharp. You don't have to say it, Arthur. Your silence says enough. Arthur's hand shot out, desperate. Mia, wait, but she pulled away, eyes blazing with hurt. No. You wanted to protect me? Then protect me from this. From you. She turned, storming toward the rooftop door. Arthur stood frozen, his chest aching with words left unsaid. Daniel leaned in, whispering like a knife to his ear. Congratulations, Arthur, you just saved your empire and lost the only thing real in your life. The days that followed were hollow. Mia avoided every call, every message. She buried herself in sketches but couldn't draw a single line without her hands shaking. At the diner, she worked silently, ignoring stares and whispers. Customers gossiped openly, some curious, some cruel. She thought she was Cinderella. Turns out midnight came too soon. Each word cut deeper, but she forced herself to keep serving coffee, plate after plate, as if nothing had broken inside her. Arthur, meanwhile, buried himself in boardrooms and contracts. His empire thrives, stocks up, investors reassured, Daniel smug at his side. But every time he looked at the city skyline, he saw her face. Her fire. Her defiance. Her hurt. He tried to convince himself he had done the right thing, that silence had been protection. That choosing her would have destroyed them both. But at night, alone in his penthouse, the truth gnawed at him. He hadn't protected her. He had betrayed her. One evening, Rosa found Mia sitting in the dark of her apartment, sketches scattered across the floor. "You can't let him do this to you," Rosa said firmly. Mia whispered, "He already did. And I let him." Her voice cracked, but her eyes hardened. "No more. No more waiting for him to choose me. If I rise, it'll be because of Menet, because of him." Rosa squeezed her shoulder. "That's the Mia I know." Meanwhile, Arthur attended yet another glittering gala, surrounded by polished smiles and shallow praise. But this time, the champagne tasted bitter. The music felt hollow. Across the room, Daniel raised his glass. To clarity. To priorities. Arthur's lips tightened, but he clinked the glass anyway. Because deep down, he knew he hadn't chosen clarity. He had chosen fear. And in doing so, he had lost the only person who ever made him feel alive. Later that night, Arthur stood on his balcony, the city lights stretching endlessly. He pulled out his phone, opening her number for the 100th time. His thumb hovered over the call button. But he couldn't press it. Because what could he say? "I'm sorry," felt too small. "I need you," felt too selfish. So he closed his phone, his chest aching with the weight of everything left unsaid. Across town, Mia lay awake, her sketchbook open beside her. Her little brother slept peacefully, unaware of the storm in her chest. She whispered into the dark, almost to herself, "I don't need a millionaire to tell me I matter. I'll prove it. To them. To him. To myself." Her hand gripped the pencil tighter. And for the first time in days, she began to draw. Lines bold. Unapologetic. Fierce. The spark wasn't gone. It was turning into fire. The city didn't stop talking. Every magazine cover, every gossip blog, every whisper in every boardroom, Arthur Hale and the poor waitress. But this time, Mia wasn't hiding. She walked into the public library with her sketchbook tucked under her arm, her chin lifted. Rows of computers lined the room, filled with people chasing their own small dreams. Mia logged into the free design program, uploading scans of her sketches. Her heart pounded as she clicked submit to a contest she had never dared enter before, an independent fashion showcase run by young designers. Her name appeared on the screen. Mia Torres. Entry confirmed. For the first time, she smiled. Not because of Arthur. Not because of anyone else. Because of her. Meanwhile, across town, Arthur sat in a board meeting, numbers flashing on the screen. Profits up. Investments safe. But he couldn't focus. His gaze drifted to the window, the city sprawling beneath him. Somewhere out there, Mia was fighting alone. Daniel leaned forward, his voice smug. "You see?" Silence worked. No more scandal, no more distractions. "We're stronger without her." Arthur's hands curled into fists under the table. Stronger without her? Then why did every victory feel like loss? At the diner, Rosa slid into the booth across from Mia, eyes wide with excitement. "You're trending." Mia blinked. "What?" Rosa turned her phone toward her. A clip from the Art Hall review had gone viral, Mia speaking about overlooked strength, her passion shining in her words. Comments flooded in, "She's inspiring." Finally, someone real. Forget Arthur Hale, Mia Torres is the story. Mia's breath caught. For once, the spotlight wasn't about scandal. It was about her voice. That night, Mia worked late on her sketches, the glow of a desk lamp filling her small apartment. Her brother peeked out, rubbing his eyes. "Are you drawing again?" She smiled softly. "Yeah, buddy. I think I'm really doing this." He grinned sleepily. "You're gonna be famous." Her heart warmed. Not famous. But maybe free. Meanwhile, Arthur sat alone in his penthouse, a glass of untouched whiskey in his hand. The TV played muted news in the background, his name paired with hers, every channel dissecting the story. He muted it completely, staring out at the skyline. He had spent his whole life controlling narratives, bending headlines to his will. But Mia had done what he never could. She turned scandal into strength. And for the first time, Arthur wondered, was he the one who needed her more than she needed him? Days later, the Independent Showcase announced its lineup. Mia's name was on the poster, bold and undeniable. She stared at it taped to the library wall, her hands trembling. Rosa squealed beside her. "Mia! You did it!" For the first time in weeks, Mia let herself laugh. "I did." But the joy was short-lived. Because standing across the street, watching silently from behind tinted car windows, was Arthur. He didn't approach. He didn't speak. He just watched her glow from a distance, pride and regret tearing him in two. That evening, Daniel confronted him in the office. "You see? She's moving on. That's good. Let her go. You can't afford to look weak." Arthur's jaw tightened. His reply was soft but sharp. "If believing in someone is weakness, maybe I've been strong for too long." Daniel's smirk faltered, but only for a second. "Careful, Arthur. One step toward her again, and you'll burn everything down." Arthur turned toward the city lights. His voice was low, certain. "Maybe some things are worth burning for." Across town, Mia stood on her apartment balcony, sketchbook against her chest, the night air cool around her. For the first time, she didn't feel invisible. For the first time, she really believed that she could stand on her own. But deep inside, one truth lingered. No matter how far she rose, her heart still beat in time with his. And she knew sooner or later, their worlds would collide again. The showcase night arrived. The venue glowed with golden lights, buzzing with designers, critics, and cameras flashing like stars. For most, it was just another fashion event. For Mia Torres, it was everything. She stood backstage, clutching her portfolio, her heart racing. Models rehearsed, assistants shouted, but all she heard was the pounding of her own chest. "I can do this," she whispered to herself, but a small voice inside added, "without him." Outside, reporters filled the carpet, waiting for celebrities and big names. And then a black limousine pulled up. Arthur Hale stepped out. The crowd gasped, cameras clicking furiously. He wasn't on the guest list. He wasn't part of the industry. So why was the most arrogant millionaire in Manhattan walking into a fashion showcase? Backstage, Mia froze when she saw him enter. Their eyes locked across the chaos. Her stomach twisted. What was he doing here? Arthur didn't flinch under the lights or the whispers. He walked straight toward her, each step deliberate. "Mia," he said quietly, his voice steady. She turned away, focusing on her sketches. "You shouldn't be here." "Maybe not," he admitted. "But I came anyway." Before she could respond, an announcer called her name. Mia's hands shook as she stepped onto the stage, models carrying her designs behind her. The lights were blinding, the audience murmuring. She presented each piece, bold lines, fierce colors, stories stitched into fabric. "This collection," she said, voice trembling at first but growing stronger, "is about people who are underestimated. People told they don't belong. But strength doesn't need permission to exist." The crowd erupted into applause. Judges nodded. Some even stood. And in the corner of the room, Arthur Hale clapped slow, deliberate, his gaze never leaving her. Afterward, reporters swarmed Mia, shoving microphones in her face. How does it feel to go from waitress to designer? Is Arthur Hale funding you? Are you two together? Mia stammered, overwhelmed. And then Arthur stepped forward. He raised his voice, strong and clear. She doesn't need me. She never did. Everything you saw tonight? That was Mia Torres. Her vision. Her talent. Her fight. The room fell silent. Cameras clicked furiously. Arthur's eyes softened as he looked at her. If anything, I should be the one standing behind her. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Mia's breath caught. Her chest ached, torn between pride and pain. She whispered, just loud enough for him to hear. Why now? After everything? Arthur's voice cracked. Because I was a coward. Because I let fear decide for me. And I can't keep doing that, not with you. The world around them blurred, lights, cameras, whispers fading. For the first time, Arthur Hale wasn't the untouchable millionaire, he was just a man. And he was asking for a second chance. But before Mia could respond, a judge stepped onto the stage, smiling. Ladies and gentlemen, she announced. Tonight, we are proud to award Mia Torres the Rising Designer Prize. Applause thundered. Flashbulbs exploded. Mia's knees nearly buckled. She had done it. She had won. Arthur's eyes gleamed with pride, but he didn't move closer. He stayed where he was, giving her the moment. Because for once, it wasn't about him. It was about her. Later, after the crowd thinned, Mia found herself standing alone outside, the cool night air brushing against her skin. The prize ribbon still felt unreal in her hands. Arthur appeared beside her, quiet, almost tentative. You proved them all wrong, he said softly. Mia turned to him, her voice steady but laced with hurt. I proved myself. That's the difference. Arthur nodded slowly. And I'll spend every day proving myself to you if you let me. Her heart pounded. But before she could answer, Rosa rushed out, shouting, Mia. They want an interview for tomorrow's magazine. Mia blinked, torn between worlds. Arthur stepped back, his eyes searching hers one last time. This isn't the end, he said firmly. Not for you. Not for us. And before she could reply, he disappeared into the night, leaving her breathless. The morning after the showcase, Mia's face was everywhere. From waitress to winner, Mia Torres stuns at City Showcase. Arthur Hale's protégé or something more? Magazine covers showed her holding the Rising Designer ribbon, light glowing in her eyes. But right beside those images were photos of Arthur always at her side, always watching. And that's where the storm began. By noon, the board of Hale Enterprises gathered in the glass conference room, voices sharp and restless. This is out of control, one director snapped. Every headline ties her to you. Investors are uneasy. We need damage control. Arthur sat at the head of the table, silent, his hands clasped. Daniel leaned forward, smirking. Cut ties, Arthur. Make a statement. Say she's nothing more than a charity case. End this before it sinks us. Arthur's jaw flexed, but he said nothing. Meanwhile, Mia sat at the diner with Rosa, flipping through a magazine with trembling hands. Her sketches were splashed across glossy pages, her name bold in print. But so were the whispers, she's only here because of Arthur Hale. She wouldn't have made it past round one without him. Mia's throat tightened. They'll never see me as more than his shadow. Rosa grabbed her hand. Then you burn brighter. Prove them wrong again. That evening, Mia received a call from the showcase committee. Her designs had caught the attention of a major fashion house in Paris. They wanted a meeting. Her breath caught. Paris? That's impossible. But the woman on the phone replied firmly, no, Miss Torres. It's your opportunity. Mia hung up, her heart racing. This was everything she had ever dreamed of. But why did the thought of leaving feel like losing something else? At the same time, Arthur faced the press outside Hale Tower. Reporters shouted, microphones shoved in his face. Arthur, is Mia Torres your girlfriend? Are you using her story to clean your image? Is this relationship real or just another deal? Arthur stopped, his expression unreadable. Cameras flashed, the world holding its breath. And then he spoke. She's real. More real than anything I've ever had in my life. The crowd gasped, questions exploding louder than ever. But Arthur walked away, leaving his words hanging in the air like thunder. When Mia saw the clip that night, her chest tightened. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to trust that his words weren't just for cameras. But doubt lingered. Because the very next headline read, Hale Empire at risk, is love worth billions? The next morning, Arthur appeared at her apartment. His suit was sharp, but his eyes looked tired, restless. Mia, he said softly, come with me. Let me show you what you mean to me. She crossed her arms, heart pounding. Words aren't enough anymore, Arthur. I can't live in your shadow. You're not in my shadow, he insisted. You're the only light I've got. Her breath caught, but she shook her head. Then prove it. Not with money. Not with power. Prove it where it costs you everything. Arthur's chest rose and fell. He stepped back, his gaze heavy with determination. Then I will, he whispered. Later that night, Daniel stormed into Arthur's office. You're insane. I heard what you told the press. You're going to destroy everything. Arthur's voice was steel. Maybe it's time I stop protecting the wrong things. Daniel sneered. So you'll throw your empire away for her? Arthur's reply was quiet but unshakable. If that's what it takes. Across town, Mia stood on her balcony, the Paris offer letter in her hands. The city buzzed with rumors. Arthur Hale's empire balanced on a knife's edge, headlines questioning if love could cost billions. But Arthur was done hiding. The night of the Hale Enterprises annual gala arrived. A glittering event where every shareholder, journalist, and critic gathered under one chandelier-lit roof. Mia hadn't planned to go. She had her Paris ticket tucked in her bag, departure less than 48 hours away. But when an embossed invitation appeared at her door, she hesitated. Don't, Rosa warned. This could be another trap. Mia held the invitation tighter. Or it could be the truth. The gala hall shimmered with champagne and suspicion. Cameras flashed as Arthur stepped onto the stage, his suit black as midnight, his eyes steady. Ladies and gentlemen, his voice boomed, you came here to hear about profits, about deals. But tonight, I won't talk about numbers. I'll talk about something more important. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Arthur's gaze swept the room and landed on Mia, standing in the back, clutching her bag. His voice softened. I've built an empire, but somewhere along the way, I forgot what it means to fight for something real. Until I met her. Gasps echoed. She is not a scandal. She is not a weakness. She is strength. Courage. Fire. And she changed me. The crowd froze, the world holding its breath. Mia's chest tightened. Every eye turned to her, the spotlight burning like fire. Arthur's voice cracked, raw and unguarded. If it costs me everything to stand by her, then so be it. Because without her, all this, he gestured at the gold and glass around him, means nothing. Silence. Then murmurs. Then an eruption, half applause, half outrage. Daniel stormed to the stage, fury in his eyes. You've lost your mind, Arthur. Do you know what you've done? Arthur met his gaze, unflinching. I've finally done the right thing. Reporters swarmed Mia instantly. Mia! Do you accept him? Do you love him? Her throat tightened. She wanted to run. She wanted to stay. She wanted both. Arthur stepped down from the stage, weaving through the crowd until he stood before her. His voice dropped, only for her. Paris is waiting. But so am I. Choose me or choose your dream. Either way, I'll never stop believing in you. Mia's eyes filled with tears. Her heart ached with the weight of the moment. Mia's words trembled on her lips, swallowed by the weight of the golden ballroom. Why do you always make me choose between you and myself? Arthur's eyes burned, raw and desperate. Because I was afraid. Afraid you'd outshine me. Afraid you'd leave. But the truth is you already outshine everything I've ever built. And if Paris is where you belong, then I'll let you get in if it destroys me. The crowd gasped. The arrogant millionaire, the man known for never bending, stood vulnerable in front of the world. Mia's chest tightened. For so long, she had been invisible. Mocked. Cast aside. Tonight, she wasn't just seen, she was chosen. Not as a shadow. Not as a scandal. As herself. Tears welled in her eyes. Arthur, I don't need to choose. Paris is my dream. But so are you. He froze, disbelief flashing across his face. I'll go, Mia whispered, but I want you beside me. Not as the man who owns empires. As the man who finally learned how to fight for something real. Arthur's lips parted, then curved into the faintest, trembling smile. The room erupted, some in outrage, some in applause. But none of it mattered anymore. Days later, the headlines changed. Rising star Mia Torres debuts in Paris with stunning collection. Arthur Hale seen supporting designer girlfriend abroad. Photos showed her standing proudly beside her designs, reporters praising her raw vision. And in the corner of every shot Arthur, no longer the untouchable millionaire, but the man who clapped the loudest. Backstage in Paris, Mia adjusted the final dress on a model, her hands steady, her heart full. She turned and found Arthur leaning in the doorway, tie loosened, eyes soft. You did it, he said quietly. She smiled. We did it. Because you finally believed I could. Arthur stepped closer, lowering his voice. No, Mia. Because you finally believed it yourself. Her chest warmed. She reached for his hand, their fingers intertwining. For the first time, there were no cameras, no whispers, no walls. Just them. Weeks later, back in New York, Mia returned to the diner not as a waitress, but as a guest. Her sketches now carried her name, her designs worn on real runways. The same co-workers who once mocked her now whispered with awe, "That's her. The girl who proved everyone wrong." Mia smiled softly, sliding into a booth with Rosa and her little brother. Her brother beamed. You're famous now. She ruffled his hair. Not famous. Just finally me. That night, standing on the balcony of Arthur's penthouse, Mia looked out at the city lights. She whispered, funny, isn't it? A poor waitress and an arrogant millionaire. Arthur slipped his arms around her waist, his voice low against her ear. No. Just a girl who refused to be invisible and the man lucky enough to love her. Mia closed her eyes, leaning into him, her heart steady. Because the spark that began with spilled wine had become something neither of them expected, something that burned brighter than fear, brighter than scandal. Something real. The end.